Okay, we are in the Orchot Tzaddikim, and we're on page 214. Don't worry, you haven't missed a class. We're just going from where we went 2 weeks ago. Okay, please subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, like it, comment on it, make it go way. Oh, and don't forget to ring the bell, because whatever you do, all these things, it brings it way up in your ratings, and you get to see every class as it comes. Okay. So now, you like that introduction? That's a good introduction, right? Okay. Okay, like I said, we're on the gate of love, and it says, if someone is shamed by another, he should not shame that person in return. If he is misled by another, he should not mislead him in return. He should bear the burdens of others upon his shoulders, but not impose his burdens upon them. He should not quarrel with others, and should receive all men with joy and with a pleasant countenance, because a pleasant countenance strengthens love. And he explains that a pleasant countenance strengthens love means one who receives others with a pleasant countenance is considered to have given them all of the good gifts of the world, even if he has given them nothing. A smile is worth $1,000,000. Rav Salanter is known to have said that a person's heart is a private domain, but the person's face is a public domain. When one greets others with a smile, he is credited for the joy and happiness they experience as a result. And conversely, if he is responsible if he hurts their feelings by failing to do so. Oh, we did this.
Yeah.
Yeah, smile costs nothing. I did this in the last class. Okay, fine. So, what?
Okay,
So you'll read it. Okay, so 215. So he should deal with his friend in goodwill. It's an interesting story, though, so when you get a chance, you read it, okay? So he should deal with his friend in goodwill and console all men in their sorrow and worry. If he hasn't been entrusted with a secret, he should not reveal it to others. So he says, the Gemara says that if a person has no right to repeat what someone else tells him unless that person gives him explicit permission to do so. So the Poli Yoetz clarifies that this remains true even if the one repeating the secret tells the next person not to repeat it to anyone else. The Poli Yoetz quotes the Zohar, who elaborates on the severity of repeating a secret without permission to do so. And he gives a story, Can You Keep a Secret? Years ago, my brother of Alger suggested a wonderful idea about how to avoid spilling the beans when being pressured to do so. Asking the one pressuring if he can really keep a secret. After he says he certainly can, tell him, so can I.
Oh, that's great.
There you go. Okay, so I thought that was a great one.
That is good.
Yeah. He should not speak ill of anyone or listen to such talk about others. He should give others the benefit of the doubt wherever possible, taking especial pains to do so, and then he will be beloved by all. And he says, the laws of judging others favorably are derived from the verse, B'tzedek tishpot amitecha, you shall judge your fellow man with righteousness. Okay, so, and then it goes on to say, he must honor all men in deed and word, and not act superior to any man, but humble himself before all men, doing so all for the sake of heaven. And he must be very careful not to associate with disreputable people, so as not to learn from their deeds, and to keep far away from the seat of scoffers. And he says, the Ramchal describes a scoffer as a person who makes a mockery of any behavior that arouses people to examine and analyze their actions vis-a-vis their relationship with Hashem. He is a person who repels any suggestion to introspect and creates an atmosphere which is akin to a shield that is lubricated with oil, causing arrows to slide off. The Dubna Yamagid says that a lates, which is you would normally say he's a mocking person or a lazy person, a lates, is a person who has an opportunity to be involved in Torah study, but does not. He obviously belittles its importance. Either way, the author strongly urges us not to associate with this kind of person for the fear of being influenced by his ways, which is why it says in Pirkei Avot, stay away from a bad neighbor, stay away from a bad neighborhood, and so on and so forth, stay away from scoffers.
It's absolutely so true.
Right, so you stay away from all those people who are negative influences on your life, and you surround yourself with positive influences. By the way, if you really want, that's Pirkei Avot. So, and I said in one of my speech on the first and only Fred talk that was recorded, that there was another Fred talk, but it didn't make the recording. Okay, but in that one I said that everything really comes from Pirkei Avot. But if you need, and there's all the business knowledge you ever need is right in Pirkei Avot. And how do I know that? Because when I listen to all these gurus on YouTube, that's why the big gurus are on YouTube. Okay, they never made the other two, I guess. But so it's the great success that they have. But nonetheless, they always want to argue that if you want to be successful, you surround yourself with successful people. If you want to be rich, surround yourself with rich people. If you want to be athletic, you surround yourself with athletic people. Whatever you surround yourself with, that's who you're going to be. So they're just telling us what Pirkei Avot said, but they're putting it to rich. They want to say rich and so on and so forth. You have to surround yourself. You have to pay. And they even say, strangely enough, and this comes again from Pirkei Avot, if you have to buy your way in, you do that. You make the investment. And that is uknei lecha chaver. Acquire for yourself a friend. Which Pirkei Avot says, even if you have to acquire, if you have to pay that person so you can learn with him, you do that. Because you want to be like that.
With somebody,
correct.
He needs to be paid.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. These guys, either they knew that they caught it from the Jews, or they didn't know. It was just in the ear. It was just common sense. I'm not sure how they knew it, but they are quoting all of Pirkei Avot. And that's why I said, if anybody just wants to be successful in business, all you have to do is learn the ethics of the fathers.
Okay, you stop and think how long ago that was written down, and the rabbis knew this before it was written down. And if anybody, it seems like anybody. I mean, so our studies, these early studies, it seems to me, are in-depth psychological studies of human nature.
Correct.
And it seems like if anybody takes the time to, whether you grew up religiously enough, you take the time to stand back and look at society and keep all those mental notes and maybe write stuff, and you can see these things.
Correct. And like I said, when you start realizing that the secular world has what you've had all along, they just sell it differently. That's all they're doing. We're selling it religiously. We're trying to get closer to God and so on and so forth. But the very same concepts that we have to achieve our ultimate goal of getting close to Hashem is what they use to get close to the dollar. Because the methodology works. And everybody knows if the system works, don't break it. And that's why, again, watch any one of these videos, and you will see, even if you listen to or read their books, you will see the same thing over and over and over and over again. Dave Ramsey is all from Torah. He'll say it too, but it's all there. And Rich Dad Poor Dad is all there. Rich Dad, that's
going way back. What's his name? How to Win Friends and Influence. Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie. It's all there. It's all there. That's what I'm saying.
He had this. I was reading this book and said, "This guy have a Jewish background. This is amazing."
Right. And his thing is, you want people to be pleasant. You want to be pleasant to people so that they like you, and that's important. You have to care about them. I mean, he's not saying be fake. But he's giving you all this advice. If I want to sell you something, the biggest thing of selling you is to make you my friend, because you're going to believe me, because I wouldn't do anything wrong to you if I'm your friend. If I'm a salesman, you're afraid of me, because I'm just going to rip you off. I want to make a sale. But if you know me, and you know I care about you, you're going to listen to me, right? And that's, again, all Pirkei Avot. Not trying to trick anybody. It's saying you have to... But that's how you have to be. You have to care about the other guy. And that's what he's saying here. Don't associate with the wrong people. Stay away from those people. Because they're just going to bring you down. And it's not worth it. They're going to ruin everything for you. Okay, so the wise one told the son, if it enters your heart to associate with others, then associate with the wise. as is written, he who walks with the wise will grow wise. And he says the Midrash likens this to a person who entered into a perfumery. He may do no business there whatsoever, but for the rest of the day, he and his clothing will carry the scent of the perfume. So strong is the power of association with the wise that the wisdom is mystically transferred and absorbed by those who keep their company. Again, Pirkei Avot. It's all Pirkei Avot here. And give to the wise man. Right, and give to the wise man, and he will become wiser. And he says, for even if one is already wise, he should still seek out the company of the wise, so that he will add to the wisdom he already has. Don't ever be so arrogant to think you've made it. You always have to be, and that's Pirkei Avot again. It's also Rambam. It's also Torah. King David said, "From every man I've learned." We call Adam his call too. From every person I've learned. Here you have a smart guy. He's running a kingdom. And he still learns from everybody. He was only an arrogant person can't learn from somebody else. If I'm not arrogant and you tell me something, I say, because I'm receptive to that. I understand everybody has wisdom, no matter who you are. The old joke about the guy who broke down and got a flat in front of the insane asylum, and then something happened. He lost the lug nuts, and then the Michigan is watching him. And so he tells him, because the guy's like, what do I do now? He says, just take off one lug nut from every wheel and put it on, and you'll have it. So the guy says to him, I don't get it. Why are you in the insane asylum? He said, because I'm nuts, but I'm not stupid. That's the thing. But so that's what it is. You can learn from everybody. You just have to be open to it. Okay? But if you grow wise, he will praise you and not dispute your wisdom. And then you will know that you can rely upon your wisdom. If you honor him, he will honor you. If you extol him, he will extol you. If you need his help, he will help you. Whatever you say, he will defend you. If you become angry, he will tolerate you, and you will learn from his good deeds. And associate with all men from whom you can learn things that will bring you to divine service. And the sages have said, when you wish to associate with someone, anger him. If he tells you the truth in his anger, associate with him. And if not, leave him. So he said, rather, when you find him in a state of anger, anger him does not mean to get him angry. Rather, when you find him in a state of anger, it will be easier to determine what kind of person he really is. If, as the author continues, he admits the truth, meaning he responds rationally and is in control of his emotions, then choose him as a friend. If, however, he's controlled by his emotions, leading him to be irrational, then leave him. So here, even in the moment of anger, if he can be rational about it, that's the kind of guy you want.
Interesting. And when he's saying not to go purposely anger somebody, but
right.
If you happen to catch him in a state of anger, something sets him off, see how he reacts.
Right. How do you react? How do you react? I mean, it's not hard to find somebody when they're angry. It's people get angry all the time. Yeah. So now it depends, now how you're reacting.
In other words,
that.
If he catches himself and comes back to earth immediately, like, why am I acting this way?
Right. Yeah. Or if somebody says to him, this is blank, and he says, you're right. That's it. Huh. Notice you have to be in control of your emotions. Huh. That's the wise man. The irrational person, or the person you don't want to learn from, is the one who goes simply by emotions. Who I don't like what you said, so therefore you're a horrible person. Therefore I'm going to write you off. No, that's ridiculous. Again, I just said you can learn from everybody. So you may be having a bad day. I have to understand that.
Yeah, this may be off on a tangent, but it strikes me because I know most of what we read so far is like being in control of yourself. Mm-hmm. So does this author or anybody else that we have, so many books of Hashkafa, talk about emotions in depth as a topic, as a subject? I mean, there's got to be some use for emotions, obviously.
No, he's saying what the use is. This is what we're going through. We're going through this is what the Orchot Tzaddikim does. He looks at the emotions and says, you have to be in control of your emotion.
Yeah.
All emotions are good and all emotions are bad. In other words, the emotion is the emotion. What I do with that emotion is what will make it good or bad.
It's like the old story, which I think you've said many times, we repeated many times in different settings, about the guy who has a bloodlust, but he should become a surgeon or a showman. In other words, that's his emotion. In other words, right? Then he channels that.
Right. Yeah. What are you going to do with that? So that's what we're looking at. What is your not what is your predisposition? Because we don't have one. I mean, you may have one. You may be the guy who flies off the handle, but now you have to control that. Okay, so you have to. But in order to do that, you have to be wise enough to recognize that. You have some people who speak on a very high decibel. You know, they're always yelling. Yeah. But they don't realize they're yelling because nobody ever told them you're yelling. So what do you say? Why are you yelling? So there's two responses. One is, I'm sorry, or because I project. I project. That's one way to get out of that. But normally what happens is if the person is, again, using a very loud voice, and they're surrounded with people who are using low voices, they will learn to lower their voice. They will learn to speak normally. And on the other hand, if I'm around people who only scream, I become the screamer. I am who I surround myself with. That's his point. Yeah. So, and if I'm with people who are rational, again, let's understand something. Anger, like I said many times throughout all these classes, anger means you are an idolater because you believe that you're in control. So when you realize that God is in control, why am I getting angry? It's not working out for me. Okay, fine. I can argue that, but I'm not going to get angry at that. It was funny. I was with my pool, right? Yeah. So I was trying to figure out something. I was trying to jimmy something there, and I don't know if Jimmy is. We all know what Jimmy is, but yeah. I'm sure it's a slang for something, right? But
give it a little shake.
Right. So I started to jimmy the nut to go a little strong, so I could get a vacuum, so I could get the thing, and I didn't do it. So I said, well, a kapara. It's an atonement. Whatever. It's a torture because really I want to run so I can vacuum, so I can do everything, get the pool going. It should be nice weather one of these days, okay? And I want the pool to be up for that. But it didn't work. Or I'll even give you something else. This was a crazy thing. I took the spoon out of the drawer. I picked it up and it fell. I was like, what happened? So I picked it up again. I thought I put it on the counter. It fell again. I was like, what? I said, so I didn't get angry. I said, thank you for the kapara. Thank you for the atonement. Picked it up again. It fell again. Thank you again. I was like, what am I, Butterfingers? Finally, I got the four times the charm. But but that's what you have to do. You can't get angry at it for whatever reason. Things are happening. Okay.
And then he mentioned just a little bit earlier, that's finally coming back to me, he talked about anger specifically, how to channel that.
Correct.
Like somebody who's sinning on purpose, who knows better.
Correct.
He should somehow to...
Right. So that's what I'm saying. When it comes to anger, when we exhibit anger, we're saying that we should have been in control, which is saying that God is not in control, which is why we say you're an idolater. That's what the Rambam says. You're an idolater for anger. So he's saying, now it doesn't mean I'll never experience anger. Yeah. What happens is when I experience the anger, I have to be rational about it. Where am I going with this? What am I going to do? It's like somebody goes to the hospital, right? So what happens? You worry, and you stay up the whole night, and you catch a cold because you can't sleep. Because the person, why? Why are you doing that? What do you do when you're in the plane and the plane is going down? Who do you put the air on first? You or the person next to you? You have to survive. So and you're recognizing it's all from God. If I'm going to survive, I'm going to survive. But I can't worry about the doctor this, the doctor that. Well, I have to be at the hospital 24/7. No, you did your job. You brought them to the doctor. They should sit there. The doctors will figure it out. And what you do is, instead of worrying, say Psalms. Yeah. Say to them, do something. Learn Torah for them. I don't care what you're doing, but to sit there looking at them and saying, are you all right? You all right? You all right? Get out of here already. Leave me alone. I'm not all right. You keep bothering me, am I right? It's like the doctors say, Oh, the nurse says, "Are you asleep? Time for your sleeping pill." No, leave me alone. I was asleep. Right? But that's really what is going on. So that's why he says, if he's angry, you see him angry, or you see him become angry, so now you have to see what's his reaction. Is he rational? Does he maintain rationality all the way through? If so, he's a great model. If not, walk away.
So it doesn't matter what you're angry about. It all depends on how you handle it.
Correct. Right. Absolutely. The reason for your anger is irrelevant. What do you do with that? And you have to channel it to something good.
So the emotions are okay. You just have to channel them properly.
Correct. Emotions we all have emotions.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, what do I do with that emotion? Do I break down and cry? Do I, and by the way, sometimes you will. As a person dies, you break down and cry. But, and that's normal. But what do you do after that? Today I went to I don't want to go too far afield, so today I went to a webinar. It was a webinar about grief and so on and so forth. And so I went to that, and it was interesting. This is all from a non-Jewish point of view. And it was fascinating to see how the non-Jewish secular world, not religious, looks at this stuff. It's so different.
Really?
It blows my mind how different it is as what the Jewish mode is. In other words, we have halacha, we have Jewish law, which tells us from the minute of death to the end of his burial and so on and so forth, what to do, what to say, how to act. We're legislated all the way through. And you know what? It works. The system works. If you follow the system, you have catharsis. You have all these things, all these fancy words that everybody wants to use, and you don't have to go through grief counseling because everybody's invading your house for 7 days, and you keep retelling the same story over again. So you have to deal with it over and over and over. By the time Shiva, that period ends, 7 days, you are saying, "Get me out of here. I want to go back to real life.
Back to work."
And I'll be happy to go to, and then you didn't leave the community because you're going to shul every day, 3 times a day, just to say Kaddish. And they're making you lead, and so on, no matter what, everybody's surrounding you, and everybody's saying, so, after the week though, nobody asks you how you're doing. Wake up, go to work already, go to work. You're good, you did everything you had to do, fine. And nobody feels, where did my loved one go? We know where he went. Back to the Muslim. Leave me alone. It's not a matter of where did he go. What? It was a sudden death. I like that sudden death. It's like when you see on in the news, he died suddenly at 106. There wasn't anything sudden about that. Sorry. Okay. A person dies, but again, God forbid, a child dies. If you have God, if you understand that God's in charge and God took the child for whatever reason, it's more comforting than there's no rhyme or reason to what happened. He died before his time. No, according to us, he died right when he was supposed to die. Not 1 second before, not 1 second later. Can't hold off the day after death. And he was born when he was supposed to be born. Fine. Again, once you have that, and that's what I'm saying, in the secular world, they don't have that. In the secular world, there's totally... Things happen.
It's happenstance.
Happened. So the plane crashed and 5,000 people died. Whatever. It happened. My husband of 50 years died. Happened. I don't know why. I thought I was going to live forever. No, look at the picture. Okay. But I want to say, look at the picture, honey. You both weren't in good shape. But nonetheless, that's where they are. And that's what I'm saying. When you have this system that we have, the hashkafa and the halacha, the philosophy and the law that goes with it, we are so well insulated, we are so well taken care of, that it's unbelievable. And if all you do is follow the system, if you follow it, you're taken out. And because you do want to mourn, and you get that week. And by the way, after that week, you get the 30 days. You're still not through. And for the parent, you keep going for the year. By the time you're through, You say, okay, thank you. You thank the rabbis for what they did because you were taken care of, and you weren't. And let's say, I'll even give you one more. What do you have when you're in mourning for your parents for the year? Okay. Let's say there's a wedding. You don't go. You don't go. And nobody says, why aren't you going? They understand. You're in a state of mourning. There's no expectation. You just lost your parent within a year. There's no expectation of that. But I know somebody who was intermarried. The non-Jewish spouse couldn't understand that. What are you doing? What's your problem? Let's go. We haven't went. No, I can't go. Why? Wow. Your parents died, died 6 months ago. You can't explain that to somebody who doesn't get it. They're not part of the system. They just don't get it. Well, my mother died, buried her, walked away. Okay, you're in Michigan. I can't help you. You have to mourn properly. I know a Jew who was a psychiatrist, or whatever they call it. It's a psychologist. Yeah. I don't think she could give drugs, so it must be a psychologist. The mother died. She went back to work within a day. And I said to her, are you insane? We have something called Shiva. That's tough. I said, you're a psychologist. You should understand. It works. My husband told me to go back to work. Wow. It took her longer to recover than a normal recovery would take. Wow. But she'll never admit to that. And she won't watch this to know what I'm talking about. Okay. If she does, then she'll learn something. Right. Because that's what people have to understand. There is a system in place. Okay. So now, choose a friend only someone who knows his own worth, which means someone who does not recognize his own self-worth generally has low self-esteem. People with low self-esteem often conduct themselves improperly, simply because they don't feel that they have any dignity to protect and maintain. Being associated with this type of person presents spiritual dangers. So you choose a friend who knows his own worth, and for he does not, no good will come from being in his company. Acquire a friend. Again, this is from Pirkei Avot. Someone who will rebuke you when you do what is wrong, and who will teach you to do good, and will not be repulsed, and you will not be repulsed by his rebuke. And we'll find out in 2 seconds why. So he says here in 44, acquire a friend. The following mnemonic may be helpful in choosing friends. The letter of the word chav here, friend, can be unscrambled and formed into 3 other words: bachar, choose; cherev, sword; and barach, run away. Wow. If the person in question is a true friend, a chaver, then choose bachar, him as company. If, however, he is like a destructive sword, a cherev, then run away from him, barach. So it's a nice play on words, using the same 3 letters each time. Okay. And he says, don't be fooled by friendships. The story is told about 2 close friends who wanted to strengthen their friendship by spending quality time together away from the distractions of their regular daily routines. It was decided that an overnight camping trip deep in the woods would be perfect for these 2 individuals who would do anything for each other. Plans were made, and the two set out for their anticipated bonding opportunity. Late that first evening, after hours of talking, snacking, and enjoying each other's company by the campus fire, they decided to settle in for the night. Soon after removing their sneakers and laying their heads down to fall asleep, they were aroused by the sounds of a bear moving in the nearby bushes. One of them jumped to his feet and ran for his life. Looking over his shoulder, he realized that he was alone. Turning around, he saw that his friend was still back at the campsite putting on his sneakers. Don't be a fool, he cried out to his friend. You won't be able to outrun that bear. I don't need to outrun the bear, his friend shouted back. I just need to outrun you. Although people may claim to be true friends, sometimes they're only looking out for themselves. Okay, there you go. He gives some nice stories. I like the stories. And one will give, one who will give of himself and his possessions to help you. Buy him and do not sell him. He is your true friend. But a friend who flatters you and rationalizes your mistakes and errors, and who is sympathetic to you in your evil deeds, leave him and keep your foot from his path. Similarly, a friend who takes from you what he needs and causes you great harm for a slight benefit, hurry and leave him. And do not associate with those who consent to do wrong. As is said, as is written, do not say, I join to everything this people says, let us form a plot. So it says, according to the Rashi Meshuz David, this refers to the instructions given to Yeshayahu, to Chizkiyahu's men, telling them not to join Shav and his group, although they were the majority. For since they are wicked, they are not counted at all. Hence, being a majority in this case has no significance. Only God-fearing people are counted towards majority. So it's a lesson for all times. People sometimes rationalize their improper actions or lifestyle, saying everyone else is doing it. Okay, thinking that being a majority makes it right. The above verse serves as a lesson for all times that God-fearing people should not lose courage or feel insignificant because the vast majority of Jews is not true to the Torah. So just because majority of people, and if you look into, he's right, the vast majority of Jews do not follow Torah. They're not Orthodox. They're not going to, any of the Orthodox, you have a problem. But let's just say without that, the Orthodox population of the Jews is, let's say, 10%, 15, whatever. So that means that 85 to 90% of people are not Orthodox, which means they're not keeping Shabbos for the most part, not keeping kosher, not following Torah, and so on and so forth. So you would say, okay, since I have the majority of people who aren't doing it and they're still walking around, God hasn't brought lightning bolts down to kill them. God, they're eating kosher and they're eating ham and they're not dying, so on and so forth. So therefore, I should be able to do it too. And that's you saying no. Don't follow the majority. Is not. If the majority is not doing the correct thing, you don't follow the majority. You remain the minority. Just remain that way, because that is what the Torah doesn't consider them anything. They're not counted. The only ones who are counted are those who are doing the proper thing, which is an interesting mathematical formula. Only if I'm following do I get counted. So it's a fascinating statement. So it is forbidden to associate with a wicked man in the affairs of the world, as is written. Because you joined Achazyahu, Hashem has ruined your plans. And he says, because this is in reference to the incident of the year 3040, Jewish year, when Yehoshaphat, the king of Yehuda, joined with Achazyahu, the king of Israel, who was wicked. They planned to sail to Tarshish after joining forces to build ships. They never saw their plans through, as Hashem caused the ships to be lost at sea. Okay, so it is forbidden to associate with the wicked, even for the sake of doing a mitzvah. As is written, do not envy the man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. And our sages said, do not associate with a wicked man, even in the performance of a mitzvah. Which is interesting. You would think you could join with them to doing a mitzvah, but it says no. There are many paths of death found in the company of the wicked. So it says, in other words, do not choose even the good ways, because even that which appears to be the goodness of the wicked is in fact evil. Again, so here, by the way, you can go two ways. One is we say when a person is not following the law, we tell them, so do it without the right intent. It's better to do it with the wrong intent than not to do it at all. That's what we tell people. The expression is lo lishma ba lishma. You're not doing it for the sake of the mitzvah, for the sake of the Torah. You'll come to do it for that reason. Okay, you're not going to shul because it's right. You're not going to synagogue because it's right. You're doing it because you have pressure to go from whatever, or you get a call from the rabbi. Okay, so fine. But what happens is when you come, even though you didn't come for that reason, you didn't come for the real reason. You came for because you were bothered, so you came. But if the rabbi keeps calling and you keep coming, so sooner or later you're going to realize, oh, there's value in this. Well, go to the very beginning of the conversation. There's value in this, and now I'm going to do it for the right reason. Once that happens, you no longer need the prodding to do it, because now you're doing it for the right reason. So you would think that you should join with the evil guy. You would think with that logic, and that's how people get messed up. Because they say, oh, I have a great thing. I'll join with these wicked people, and I'll get them to do one mitzvah, and because of that, they're going to be inspired, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And what the Orchot Tzaddikim is saying, you don't understand. When you do that, you're surrounded with schmutz, with dirt, and with smell. And if you go into a tannery, you're going to walk out without touching anything, smelling like a hide. You don't want that. You'd rather walk into the perfume factory, which are the righteous. You don't want to walk into the tannery, which are the wicked. So if I surround myself with wicked, thinking that I'm going to help them become better people, not happening. That's what he's telling us. Again, Pirkei Avot. That's what I'm saying. He keeps going back to Pirkei Avot. All the Baalei Mussar did was they took Pirkei Avot and they gave it better words. That's all they did. They made it more speak to their people. But that's what's going on constantly, where we keep going back to that whole concept of harchek mishachen ra, stay away from the bad neighbor. If they come to you and they want to play in your sandbox, okay, so you're the major holding. So you have a whole bunch of people there who are righteous. So that person's going to come in. He will be influenced by you. That's what you want. That's what he's saying here. Okay. Yeah. So where is it? Okay. And our sages said, "Do not." Oh, I said that. Okay. I said all that. Okay. Great. Next page. So he says, if one is cautious with himself and speaks gently to others and is sociable with them, if when he is shamed by them, he does not shame them in return, if he honors them, even those who compromise his honor, if he is honest in his business dealings, even if he does not frequent the company of the ignorant or the gatherings, but is always in studying Torah wrapped in tzitzis and crowned with tefillin, conducting himself toward beyond the letter of the law, but not to the point of seclusion, so that all praise him and love him and desire to emulate his deeds. This kind of man sanctifies Hashem's name. About him it is written, and he said to me, you are my servant Israel, and you I will be glorified. So he says, if you are the kind of person who is prepared to serve Hashem as a servant serves his master, then God is glorified by you in the same manner, in the same way God is glorified by the entire Jewish nation. So the love of a long life should be as follows. One should love his days, not for eating and drinking. That would be just what an animal would be. And indulging in pleasures of the days of vanity. But he should consider the fact that the labor of Torah and the mitzvot is very great, and that if he lived twice or 4 times as long, he would not be able to fulfill the demands of the Torah and attain the good qualities by which a servant finds acceptance with his master. So he says, when it comes to, I will not be able to fill, did we hit that yet? Yeah. He says that I will, the mission says the day is short and again, Pirkei Avot, the day is short and the task is great or endless. One must take advantage of every moment, making use for it for the service of Hashem. What he's bringing out here is, no matter how long we live, no matter how much time we put into Torah, the Torah is this endless sea. We'll never be able to know all of it. We'll never be able to fulfill all of it. It's just, because it's not just, did it, check it off. Right? It's not, see, when I'm making a bucket list, so I did it, check off. I don't have to repeat that.
You did all 613, I'm done.
Right. So let's say I was checking off the mitzvot. Okay, tefillin, done. It's done. Kibbutz Avim, done. Okay. It's not just a one-time event. It's every single second of the day. When I'm sleeping, I have to sleep with God, as it were. I have to control myself even in sleep. And by the way, you're supposed to. We're told how many times we can turn over. And you would think, what are you talking about? When I'm asleep, how do I know how many times I'm turning over? The truth is, you do, because when we're asleep, if we're turning, we're a little awake already, right? Because otherwise, we're just.
You turn and go back to sleep. Yeah.
Right. So we already know, and we're starting off on one side, ending off on the other side. You can train yourself to do all these things. It's the most amazing thing. And you would think, but you shouldn't have to train yourself if you're asleep. Bottom line is, again, we're Something's there that we can train ourselves to know that we start off on one side, we're going to end up on the other side, or whatever the case is going to be. We're going to turn one or the other. We'll even wake up on time without the alarm. Think about that. How many times, as I don't know about kids, I forget when I was a kid, but as an adult, I really don't need the alarm anymore. I mean, I set the alarm because I'm just that type of guy, but it's so in case in case something happens. But for the most part, I'm always up before the alarm, 2-3 minutes before the alarm. So it's 2-3 minutes. I look, I say, okay, turn off the alarm. You don't want to wake your wife up, whatever. But you're up. Okay, we get trained into that, as opposed to if I'm on vacation. I remember when I was when I go to New York, and I get to sleep in a very dark room because there's no light coming in. It's in the basement, so on and so forth. Even there, I'll wake up for the first days. I'll wake up like I would here. But when I realize I don't have to wake up that early because there's a meeting every half hour in the hour, so then I sleep in late. I sleep another 15 minutes. Ooh, wow. That's a tremendous vacation thing. Okay, but that's, again, we know what we have to do. So that's what I'm saying. In every part of our life, from literally living to death, we're controlled by halacha. And that's why when you, and if somebody sees that is what you're doing, that when you have the free moment, you're learning Torah and so on and so forth, that I'm not getting angry, I'm not speaking Lashon Hara, I'm not doing all this. People like that. They like that. They may make fun of you, and when they make fun of you and you don't react to it, by the way, those people will quickly leave your life because they don't get a rise out of you, so they're not interested in you. But the other people, the people you want really surrounding you, will surround you, and that's when you're going to start growing. And that's his point here. The long life, all these things are all part of that. Okay, so so he should love the days of his life in this manner, for through them he will attain divine service and the pure fear and love of Hashem. He will acquire sustenance in this world, which he will bring to the next world. Through this transitory world, he will attain the eternal world and eternal pleasure. And he should always fear death and grow each day in purity and abstinence, for perhaps he may not have achieved all the perfection that he could have achieved. For each day he should increase love and fear for Hashem. Okay, again, it's never ending. That's his point. And he says, 52, he'll acquire sustenance in this world. In the first chapter of Yesharim, the Ramchal makes it very clear that man's duty and purpose in this world is to achieve the goal, the ultimate goal of attaining the pleasures of the world to come. The point whereby one can achieve that goal in this present world, the path whereby one can achieve that goal in this present world. According to the well-known Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, so it says, this world is like a corridor to the world to come. So the Ramchal explains that only through fulfillment of God's mitzvot, which are provided for us here in this world, can one reach the palace, the eternal world. It is noteworthy that even the corridor, this world, is a palace in its own rights in terms of what can be accomplished through good deeds and repentance. It is only here in the present world that one can perfect himself, so that he will be eligible for the reward. It is in this light that one should always love the days of his life. And again, I have to repeat this very important point. This is the only world that we get reward for, because we have free will. We don't know for sure what's going on. We're not clear. It's absolutely not clear. It's a world of lies here. We think one thing, and we think one thing leads to the other. It's not necessarily true. Again, I think if I have to go to work in order to make money, absolutely not true. God is one who gives me money. God is one who gives me health. God is one, so I can exercise all day long. There was a guy, I remember a guy was a runner. He was a teacher, runner, very healthy, 40 years old, dropped dead from an aneurysm. What are you going to do? He did everything right. Everything right, according to science, everything right. The aneurysm killed him. And so I had another Twinkie. You know, I said, who cares anymore? Okay, but that's the point. You think you're doing everything right. You think you're eating the right way. Then you hear the crazy stories of the old lady who was 108 and she smokes cigarettes every day and she drinks and she has her pork and blah, 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 and she's overweight. And how do you live? Then there's another woman who's 90 and she's shoveling the snow and she says frozen people don't rot. You know, all these crazy things that people come up with. But again, they're eating the worst foods in the world and they're surviving because God's the one who decides who's going to live and who's going to die. Not science, not us. We can't control that. And when we realize that, then all these transitory things that we think are true, we realize are not true. And that's part of this. That's what he's saying. You have to realize this world is the only place that we can get credit for. Once we go to the next world, we know clearly what the truth is. We no longer get credit for that. I only get credit when I have to work. And working means serving Hashem. And serving Hashem means against all logic. Logic tells me this world is just run by, like we learn it, like it says in Kohelet. What's it called? Ecclesiastes. Thank you. Like it says Ecclesiastes, the sun rises, nothing new under the sun. It rises, it goes down the sea, the rivers run to the sea, the water rapids. You have the whole hydro cycle. Everything cycles in this world. So everything you would think is just running like that. No, it's all God in the end. In the beginning and the end, it's all God. If I recognize that, great. If I don't, then I'm going to go down the wrong path. We'll have to stop here.